For Women's History Month, the Clausen Memorial Museum is celebrating notable women from Petersburg, Alaska. Amy Booth Hallingstad was a visionary Native leader, born in Haines, Alaska in 1901. She was of the Eagle Moiety, Saquadee clan, and was proud of her heritage. Over time, her family moved to Kake and then to Petersburg, arriving around the 1920s. In 1930, she married Casper Hallingstad, a Norwegian fisherman. In most of the United States during that era, interracial marriages were prohibited by miscegenation laws. Though Alaska was one of a handful of states that never enacted such legislation, segregation and discrimination were an everyday fact of life. In later years, Amy's son Jonas recalled that Casper didn't get involved in Amy's anti-discrimination and Native rights causes. She was not shy, however, about addressing these injustices herself, and Casper did not stand in her way. Amy had an interest in equal education, and when her children came of school age, she pushed for closing down the Native school, which stood in the same area as the Clausen Memorial Museum does today. All residents in town paid the same taxes to support public schools, but Native children went to segregated schools and were also sent away to Sheldon Jackson and Sitka or to boarding schools in Oregon and Washington. Amy's efforts finally paid off, and public schools in town became integrated. Her eldest son, Casper Jr., seen standing second from the right in the back row of this photograph, was the first Alaska Native student enrolled in the Petersburg Public School. Many equal opportunities were denied to non-whites, and places like the Elks and Moose were not open to Native people. One issue that understandably raised her fury were the no natives or dogs signs posted on businesses in Petersburg, as they were in other towns. Amy wouldn't stand for that and took down the signs when she saw them. She was not afraid to take action, but was also known for her humor and wit, both of which helped her achieve notable successes in promoting Native rights. She once instituted a boycott of the local theater because of its practice of segregated seating, insisting others in the Native community do the same. She continued to boycott until the theater relented and eliminated the practice. She also fought to abolish fish traps, which were impacting traditional and local fishing efforts. Amy was not only interested in local issues, but worked toward the passage of the Indian Reorganization Act, which improved the political, social, and economic conditions of Native populations across the state. She fought to promote Native hire at the canneries and pushed for better facilities for cannery crews. She helped to organize local unions for the workers as well. Amy had many other pursuits, including a store on Singley Alley, then referred to as Indian Street. She also served as a midwife for Dr. Pryor to both white and Native mothers. She was very involved with the Alaska Native Sisterhood and held meetings in her own home. Later, she served as Alaska Native Sisterhood Grand Camp president from 1945 to 1948 and from 1953 to 1955. Amy was interested in many aspects of the well-being of her people, earning her the nickname the First Lady of the First People. Working with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, she helped arrange for a dentist for Natives in Southeast Alaska and was also instrumental in helping establish the Alaska Native Service, which became Mount Edgecombe Hospital in Sitka. An often told story about Amy is how she continued to lobby the Presbyterian Church for a new minister for Petersburg, though for some time one was not assigned to town. Finally, she notified the church authorities, "Don't bother to send a minister after all. It's more fun to sin anyway." Shortly thereafter, a parish priest arrived in town. The Alaska Anti-Discrimination Act had been passed to allow Native people access to public spaces, but despite the law, segregation continued. Founded in 1944, the National Congress of American Indians was tasked to promote Native issues and work to resist the termination of tribal rights. Amy advocated for subsistence and other rights, lobbying the government on behalf of her people, telling the Congress, "You have asked us not to lose faith in the American people, but to tell our story to those who will listen. In 1948, she drafted the bylaws of the Petersburg Indian Association, a copy of which can be found at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Through this and other efforts, she gained influence in her community and beyond. When candidates for office would come to Petersburg, they would court Amy at the Big House, which was how people referred to her home. They were hoping her support of their candidacy would influence the Native community to vote in their favor. As evidence of her influence, the governor of Alaska appointed her to the Democratic National Committee. Her son Jonas would later say of her, "She didn't tell people how to vote, she just told them how she was going to vote." Amy died before a resolution to the lands claim issue was passed. Some of her papers reside in the Sea Alaska Heritage Institute collection and are available to the public for education and study. She is remembered as a human rights activist and leader in the Alaska Native Sisterhood, as well as a wife and mother. In the Petersburg Cemetery, her epitaph reads poignantly, "Her wit, humor, and wisdom are remembered. She brought us joy.